Hi guys, it's Reba. Welcome or welcome back. I wanted to make a summer TBR video, and then surprise, surprise, I overthought the whole thing and created a good old-fashioned summer reading challenge. Not just a challenge for myself. I would like to invite anyone watching to participate and join me. I came up with 6 categories to prompt reading selections. So if you're reading over June, July, August, that's about 2 books per month. If you're watching this, you may be already planning on reading this summer, but might not know exactly what you want to read. So maybe these prompts can help. I'm going to go over each of the 6 categories and tell you which books I chose for each one. The first category is something borrowed, so a book that you've either borrowed from the library or a friend. I'm definitely going to be borrowing more than one book from the library and from friends this summer, but for this challenge, I'm going to use the book that I most recently picked up from the library. I put this on hold and it was ready a few days ago. This is When Women Were Birds by Tempest Williams. This is a memoir. My friend recommended it to me last year, and I had never heard of it, but I was so intrigued by the premise, which is that the author's mother promised her she could have all of her journals, but she was not to open the journals until after her mother had died. And after her mother passed, she opened the journals, and they were all blank. Tempest Williams then writes this memoir based on that experience. The subtitle is 54 Variations on Voice, which means that in 54 short chapters, Williams recounts memories of her mother, ponders her own faith, and contemplates the notion of absence and presence in art and in our world. The premise alone sounds fantastic, but I was also personally intrigued by a couple of things. One, the writer and I both have similar family backgrounds. We both come from Mormon families, and many of my family members are still practicing Mormons. And so I am interested in the conversations around family and faith in this memoir. And I'm also interested in the journaling aspects because I'm going to be experimenting with journaling this summer and trying to find something that works for me. And so I'm also interested in that. Looking forward to it. So glad it was ready at the library for me. The second category is something overdue. So this should be a book that has been on your shelf for far too long. And in my case, that is Breasts and Eggs by Mieko Kawakami. I have had this book for 6 years. I was so excited when I first got it. And then something happened, the excitement waned. And then when I picked it up off my shelf and reread the back of it to remind myself what this was about, my excitement was reignited. I hadn't realized that the story takes place over hot summer days, which makes this a perfect summer book. As far as the story goes, this is about 2 adult sisters and one of the sisters' daughters, and they reunite in a working class neighborhood of Tokyo. It's told through the gaze of Natsuko, who's 30 years old, an aspiring writer haunted by hardships endured in her youth. Over the course of their few days together, the daughter's silence will prove a catalyst for each woman to confront her fears and family secrets. And then, on yet another blistering summer's day 8 years later, Natsuko, during a journey back to her native city, struggles with her own indeterminate identity as she confronts anxieties about growing old, alone, and childless. Again, very excited to read this. I love a sister's relationship in books, and I also love women's stories about contemplating womanhood. So this sounds fantastic. I also think that Kawakami is kind of an essential contemporary Japanese author, someone who I want to have read. So I'm really looking forward to this. The next category is something familiar. So a reread or a book from an author or genre that you already love. I'm picking a reread. I chose Checkout 19 by Claire-Louise Bennett. I love this book. I read this a few years ago and it became one of my favorite books of the year, possibly an all-time favorite. I love Claire-Louise Bennett's writing. She has such beautiful language, really goes down easy for me. I just adore this book. It is about a young woman coming into her artistry as a writer, and throughout she name drops a bunch of wonderful book titles. And so when you come away from this book, you have a giant reading list. I've tried to read several of the books that are mentioned here, and so I'm excited to return to this now that I've read some of the books that were formative to our character and I think by extension Bennett's writing. And so, yeah, this book is such a love letter to books and reading, and it also inspired me to start writing. And so I think it's just such a wonderful book. I am very excited to return to it this summer. I do think summer is such a good time to read things that are familiar and comfortable and cozy, and that is exactly what this book is to me. I think I wrote in my original review that I felt very much at home in this book. So I'm excited to feel that way once more this summer. The next category is a classic. And by classic, I mean that book that you feel guilty about every time you have to say, I haven't read it yet. I have about 100 books that I feel guilty about not having read yet. But for this summer, I'm choosing 100 Years of Solitude by Gabriel Garcia Marquez. Marquez is known as a master of magical realism. I really would like to read more magical realism, and so he's an obvious choice for that. 100 Years of Solitude is definitely a classic, and I very generally trust my intuition when it comes to picking classics that I think I might enjoy. And so I'm expecting to like this. I don't think it will disappoint me. As you can see, I don't own it yet, so I'll have to get my hands on it some way, somehow this summer. And I really don't know too much about the book. I'm more aware of it for its status as a classic and its importance in Latin American literature. That being said, I think it's about a town, the history of a town through the lives of a family that lives in it. I think I'm very much drawn to the magical realism aspect of it. I'm excited to have another big classic under my belt. I think it'll be a great summer read. The next category is something with a strong sense of place. And when I was thinking place, I'm thinking either in time or on location, but I feel like this could be interpreted in many different ways, maybe liminal spaces. I don't know. Play with it. For me, I chose Housekeeping by Marilynne Robinson. I think a lot of people who love literary fiction love Marilynne Robinson. She's known for her writing craft as well as beautiful language. I've been wanting to read this book for a while now, so I'm really excited to read it this summer. It's about a character named Ruth who, as she grows up, is raised by several different guardians. And I picked this for sense of place because I think this book has a lot to do with questions of home, hence housekeeping. It says that this book is about the effort to keep house, to keep anything at all, in a landscape and a community where nothing seems to persist except memory. From what I understand, the book begins with Ruth calling one place or one location home. And as the book goes on, she starts living a more transient life, so home becomes less grounded. I'm quite interested to see how this book explores that theme. Sounds wonderful. Excited to read it. And the final category is special interest. So I want you to pick a book that is in conversation with a topic you're either already knowledgeable about or one that you're curious about. For me, I'm going to be picking a book in the realm of philosophy. I've chosen The Need for Roots by Simone Weil. Simone Weil was a French philosopher, activist, and mystic. I listened to the Philosophize This podcast. I've spoken about it several times on this channel, but the episodes about her were really intriguing. I was really fascinated by her. I think the podcast host, Stephen West, loves her. I think she is one of his favorite philosophers because she is such a good example of someone who truly lives their own philosophies. If I'm not mistaken, I think most of her books are posthumous compilations of essays she wrote while she was still alive. And The Need for Roots is about mindful living, and it's also supposed to inspire the reader to find their own roots in a cultural sense and also a spiritual sense. That just sounds like a really good book to read during times like these. You'll notice I don't have my own copy yet, but I recently ordered one from Thrift Books, so I expect to see that soon. Last summer, I read Simone de Beauvoir's Ethics of Ambiguity, and I really enjoyed that challenging reading experience, and I'm excited for a new summer philosophy reading project. Those are my 6 books for my reading challenge categories. If you would like to join me in this challenge, I would love that. I would love to know what books you're choosing for this challenge, so leave me a comment below if you so desire. I also made a graphic which I will post to the community tab as well as my Instagram. So if you want to comment in either of those places, tag me on Instagram if you end up participating. That's great. If you don't want to do that, you don't have to do that. You can just do the challenge in private, not do it at all. In any case, thank you so much for watching. I hope you have a lovely summer of reading, and I will see you in my next video. Bye.